Well, hello again, Jeff Cloud, Crossroads Reentry Ministries. Good to see you here for Sobriety Part VII. We're going to look at the fifth step today, a key step, I believe, in recovery. As a matter of fact, I think, just in my opinion, that if 12-step recovery programs are like the military guys will recognize this, boot camp separates the men from the boys, okay? In other words, the boys don't make it through boot camp. The men do, who are military men. Now, same way in a program of recovery, in sobriety. The sobriety men, the sobriety adults will make it through those first 5 steps, with steps 4 and 5 being boot camp. They're tough. Boot camp's tough. They're tough. But once somebody gets through, they see the benefits of what they got, and they want the rest of it. And that's typically what goes on in the military. They get through boot camp, they want the rest of what the military is going to be offering them as opportunities. The same way with sobriety. Those of us going through steps 4 and 5, we are launching out, and we see how great sobriety is, and we know there's more to come. But Jeff Cloud, by now you know who I am. Phone number, call us when you get out. Don't call us collect. We don't take collect phone calls. The reason we don't, one time they're $2 for a 1-minute phone call coming from a jail. Next time they're $22. There's no rhyme or reason. And our organization, as you can well imagine, people aren't knocking our door down, giving us money to go help the people in prisons and jails and when they get out. You know, feed the homeless children. Oh, they'll get plenty of money, but not our little organization. Therefore, we have to watch our P's and Q's, our pennies and our quarters. But call when you get out for any God-honored need other than legal. Jobs, safe, sober places to stay. Again, any God-honored need other than legal. Here is our post office box. Post office box 861, Huntersville, North Carolina, 28070. 28070. Again, post office box 861, Huntersville, North Carolina, 28070. Now, the thing that we really like for people to write us about before they get out is write us about a safe, sober place to stay if you don't have one, about 5 months before you get out. And the reason being is, take a week or two for me or whoever's doing the mail to get it, respond, get you information on where you can go when you get out. You get that about the 4-week mark, you write these places, you ask them for applications and information. Maybe half of them will send it to you. You have to fill those out. You need to get them in at about the 3-month mark. Why? Places aren't going to hold a bed for more than 3 months, number one. Number two, you get too tight on that time frame before you get out, then of course people are they don't have time for their boards to vote on who comes in. Many times they'll have 10 applicants coming out of jail or prison for 2 beds. So they have a board generally that makes the decision. They look at all those applications and say, here's who we're going to bring in, blah, blah, blah. And of course what they're going to look at is, what'd you do on the inside to turn away from the person that got incarcerated, to change from being that person that got incarcerated. And they're going to look at that kind of thing. Well, I took DVD series by Crossroads Reentry Ministries on sobriety, blah, blah, blah. I took GED, that's a high school equivalency type thing. I was involved in AA while I was in prison. Those are things that would be indicative of somebody changing their life, not coming out and doing the same thing they used to be doing. If nothing changes, nothing changes, okay? But that gives you a little overview for an introduction to me and, of course, Crossroads Reentry Ministries. I'm teaching this class. I am over 20 years sober. As a matter of fact, yesterday was a 20-and-a-half-year sobriety birthday. So 20-and-a-half years sober as of yesterday. You had one day for today. Taking them one day at a time, of course. Now, no further ado, I want to jump right in on the 5th step. Fifth step, as we will know, if we know these steps, 5th step says admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. I'm going to say that again. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrong. Generally, it's pretty easy to admit to God our wrongs. Okay, God, I did this wrong, that wrong, whatever the case is, as we talk to Him in our prayer life, and that can be silently talking to Him in our prayer life. And it's not tough to admit to ourselves our great wrongs, but telling another human being our deep, dark secrets, now that is tough. As a matter of fact, the Big Book says this is perhaps difficult. I laugh. I think those guys purposely put some things in there that would have us as gone through, those of us who've gone through the steps, to be able to laugh. Perhaps difficult? They sure could have removed that word perhaps, because I ain't seen anybody yet that didn't say it was difficult getting ready to do it. It is very difficult to tell somebody our deep, dark secrets. Now, I like to paint a picture sometimes of what does it benefit us as humans to do something. If there's no benefit, it shouldn't be done. There's no benefit, it shouldn't be done. It's pretty simple there. But you're going to hear me paint what the benefits are if we do a fifth step. And I'm going to, good Lord willing, paint them very clearly for you. But here is one of the major benefits. CRM, which is us, that's the abbreviation for Crossroads Reentry Ministries. We've been doing substance abuse in the Mecklenburg County Jail, that's the jail here in Charlotte, North Carolina, for years. One of the things I've been privileged to do is work with men on the inside and do fifth steps with them. We try to get them through the first 5 steps like most treatment programs do in the nation. Because, by the way, if a person will get through the first 5 steps, do them as thoroughly and honestly as they can, the jonesing quits. The cravings end. If a man's an addict or an alcoholic and doesn't have to jones, we call it jonesing, or crave his drug of choice, whether it be a drug or alcohol, he's got a great chance at beating his disease of alcoholism or drug addiction. But here at Crossroads Reentry Ministry, CRM, we have done, in particular, me and one of our other teachers might do 1, 2, or 3 a year, but I've generally done about 3 or 4 dozen per year, somewhere around 40 per year over the last several years, fifth steps with men. And what we've done is we've tracked those men when they've done a fifth step with us versus somebody who got processed the exact same day, random. We call that comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges. And we will track the two and keep statistics on it. And here's how we track. We only track one thing. Do they get reprocessed back into the Mecklenburg County Jail? And here's what we have discovered with years of data. And I want to share something with you. I don't cook the books, number one, because substance abuse and sobriety is a program of honesty. There's no need to cook the books. When we're walking with God, there's no need to make things look like they're not looking. We're honest with God, we're honest with people. Here's basically what goes on. I went all the way from July the 1st, 2012 to June the 30th, 2013. If you catch that, 1 full year without getting paid as the executive director of Crossroads. The top guy, not getting paid. My teachers got paid, all right, but I didn't. And I continued to go into the jails and do what I do because I've seen it work so well. All right, now, didn't get paid. What happened, Mr. Cloud? Well, there was a big grant that we had from the ABC, Alcohol Beverage Control people of all folks, and we're very appreciative to them. We were under another charitable organization who didn't do their accounting like they were supposed to. The grant got pulled for a year, so I didn't pay myself since our funds had dwindled down so much, paid the teachers. Then we go back after that same ABC grant on our own, away from that other group that didn't do their accounting, and by God's grace, we got the grant, so we got plugged back into it. But through that ABC grant, they want accountability. Does this stuff work or not? And basically, we have shown them as this being part of it, part of the grant attestation, if you will, that it does work, or testimony that it does work. And we've basically tracked these things. Now, I'm going to cut to the chase with what we found. But years of these statistics have shown us this. In the Mecklenburg County Jail, with many, many people studied, 42% of those currently incarcerated in the Mecklenburg County Jail, processed into the system, will be reprocessed through the system within 1 year. Within 1 year. 42%. That's the average guy, the average pod, the average woman in the average pod, average youth in the average pod in Mecklenburg County Jail, North Carolina. This is probably typical of everywhere else because we're a pretty big place, 1 million people in our county. So we're a pretty big city. Matter of fact, we're the largest one in the Carolinas. Okay, largest between Atlanta, Georgia, and Washington, D.C. So you kind of get the picture here. We're probably typical of a nation, I would call it. But we found 42% reprocessed in Mecklenburg County Jail. If they'll simply sit their rear end in a substance abuse pod, it drops down to 27%. So if they take a substance abuse program, it drops from 42% to 27%. Now, you go one step further if they park their butt in the substance abuse program and do a fifth step with us at Crossroads Reentry Ministries, it drops to 12%. Now, if you do your math, 42% divided by 12% is 3.5. 42 divided by 12 is 3.5. Basically what it's saying is a person is 3.5 times less likely to go back into the jail, prison, into the incarceration lifestyle if they'll simply get through that one thing, getting through the fifth step. That is powerful. I don't know about you, but I imagine you're the same way I am. I don't think any of us set out wanting to go to jail. Now, I work with tens of thousands of people over my career. Every now and then there'll be somebody maybe a little bit off who does want, or very unusual circumstances. The streets beat them down so bad that jail is a place they can get their 3 squares and a bed to sleep on. Every now and then there's somebody that is, but I'm not knocking those folks. I'm basically saying this. The vast majority of us, jail and prison ain't where we want to be. Now, if you can decrease those chances by a factor of 3.5, that must be pretty good. I want some of that. I want some of that. And I think most people do. You know, the big book says this about doing a fifth step. If we don't do it, here's what it says. We may not get over drinking or drugging if we do not do it. It also says it's a humbling experience. What humility means is this. I got to have your help, God, and I got to have that help as it comes through people. All right? Pride says, get out of my life, God. I'll run the show. And by the way, I'm the man. I don't need anybody telling me what to do. God's seesaw works like this. We exercise humility, He'll lift us up in life. We exercise pride, we going down. Guaranteed every time. 100% true seesaw of God. We exercise pride, hey God, you get out of my business, and by the way, I don't need anybody. Life's going to go down. Did for me, done for everybody else I've ever watched in my life. Conversely to that, we say, hey God, I got to have your help. I got to have it as it comes through people. That's called humility. God will lift us up in life. Happen every time in my life, happen every time in everybody's I've observed. Okay? Now, that's always true 100% of the time. And part of humility is I need others' help. So when we do a fifth step, we tell our deep, dark secrets to one other person who won't tell it to anybody else. We've actually depended on God's help coming through another person. And that's humility. And that's basically what it is. It's a humbling experience, the big book says. It requires depending on another human being. Many people testified they worked the rest of the program except this one and they relapsed. I can't tell you how many dozens of times I've heard that story. Many times it's like this. I was relapsing left and right, 20 years. I always kept back that deep, dark secret. Never would tell anybody. I kept relapsing. And then finally I came clean. I worked the whole program, including telling that deep, dark secret. And now I'm 13 years sober, or whatever the case may be. You wouldn't believe how many times I've heard that kind of testimony in the rooms. You stay sober about a year or two, you'll hear it several times yourself as well. Now, what is it? What it is, telling deep, dark secrets. Telling one other person your deepest, darkest secrets. That's basically what it is. Things that we may have done to somebody else, or somebody else has done to us. Any of them that fit into that deep, dark secret category, here's basically what goes on. The enemy beats us down with it. I'm going to give you an example. Imagine, if you will, that board is blank, and I got a line drawn all the way across that board. Okay? One line drawn all the way across that board. And I say in your mind, and me in my mind, let's put, and don't say it out loud, I don't think anybody would, but let's put our deepest, darkest secret on that line. All right? So imagine us going up there and writing it down. Nobody's in the room with us, and we put it up there, our deepest, darkest secret. All right? Here's what's gone on in the past. The enemy has beat us down with our deep, dark secrets, and particularly that deepest, darkest secret, because here's what he's done. You're the lowest piece of crap to ever be on the face of the earth, and I'm using nice words. You're the lowest, blah, 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 S-O-B. You're the lowest ever been on the face of the earth because you did, boom. And he puts it right there in our face, in our spirit, and brings it up. We feel shame. We feel less than. And here's what's interesting. When we tell those to one other person, all that power from the dark realm is gone. No longer does he beat us down with it, deep, dark secrets. What we actually realize, we go through this, for example, maybe do it with a sponsor or do it for somebody that's we can really trust coming into prisons or jails from AA or NA, and I mean really trust. We do this with that one other person, the enemy can't beat us down with it anymore because it's come to the light. The enemy loves darkness. Keep it under cover. Keep it under cover. So that tells a little bit of what it is. Now, I got one key here that I want to share with you. Do not write your fifth stuff on paper. Here's what I mean. Don't write it down. Here's why. Our deep, dark secrets we're not going to forget. And realistically, a great tool for not forgetting things is writing it down. You'll notice Jeff Cloud, if you're following along and your programmer or whoever is bringing to you, your facilitator for watching these DVDs has gotten the sheets from us, you'll notice that Jeff Cloud generally goes to those sheets to teach. Now, it gives you the same thing. You can use them to refresh later, but if you catch that, he's written them down so that he doesn't forget to teach key components. The fifth step, we're not going to forget our deep, dark secrets. Here's what else can happen. If we've written them down, the wrong person find them. Let's put ourselves in a substance abuse pod in a jail somewhere or in a prison. The wrong person find them. Hey there, Johnson, look what I found. Your fifth step written down here. Look at these deep, dark secrets. If you don't give me 80% of your commissary, I'm going to let the whole yard out there know. I'm going to let the whole pod know. Whew, you don't want that. So the point being, don't write them down. You don't need to on the fifth step. That's our deep, dark secrets. The fourth step was resentments, fears, and sexual relation patterns, not people, patterns. And of course, if that got found, nobody could confiscate my commissary because of it. They couldn't con me out of it, basically. Hey, you gonna tell somebody I had a grudge against my parents because they broke up when I was little? Go ahead, tell the whole pod. It don't matter to me, you know. But my deep, dark secrets, woo, I ain't telling that. Now, another key is some of our deep, dark secrets related to using our drug of choice, alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, and some didn't. I'll give you an example. Some of them might have happened 3 years before we ever used a drug or drank a drink of alcohol. Deep, dark secrets. They're not just related to the substance abuse part. They can be, and some of them probably are. Matter of fact, most of them probably are to some degree. But they don't have to be. They're just deep, dark secrets. Now, I also want to share with you the person that we tell it to. Now, the big book says this. This is an intimate and confidential step. Confidential means should never go any further than just the person telling their fifth step and the person hearing their fifth step. The big book warns you to be very selective. So if that's the case, how would it look to do a fifth step? Well, our Catholic buddies, and many that watch this are Catholic in their Christianity, they're Catholic Christians. They will realize, for example, Catholic Christians have a confessional booth at their church and they confess to the priest. They may want to wait until they get out to do this step, and that's okay. If they feel in their heart of hearts that they need to do that, that's okay. If there's not a Catholic priest coming into the jail or the prison, and they wait till they get out, but the rubber's going to meet the road when they get out. Did they go do it immediately, or are they just fooling themselves? Because if we can't be honest with ourselves, we sure can't get and stay sober, guaranteed, because we're still living a lie. All right? Now, but that being said, it could be put off if that's the pure motive. The motive of our heart, no problem. Why? Catholic priest hears stuff all the time, and he doesn't go telling everybody if he's a good Catholic priest. Another possibility might be a sponsor. A sponsor is somebody who's gone through the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. They've already gone through the 5th step. They told their deep, dark secrets to probably their sponsor, who didn't tell their secrets, okay? That didn't tell on the person who told their 5th step. Didn't say anything about it. They kept it in confidence. So if you're outside and you can get a sponsor, maybe that's what you do. You get a sponsor on the outside and do your 5th step. All right? Inside, if you have a good minister, a reverend, a bishop, a pastor, whatever the case may be, and you've watched them in there and you know that they would keep things in confidence, then you could do your 5th step. Just tell them your deep, dark secrets. Here I'm doing the 5th step of recovery, and I understand that it is so important. It'll take away my jonesing and my craving when I get out. It's going to be very important for me not to come back to jail or prison. This is part of what I'm doing for my recovery program. You know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they would keep it secret. That'd be a great person to do it with. All right? If you're so suited that you're in a prison, and let's say they've been AA coming in the house there for 3 years and you've been working with them, and you know and you've watched this man and he doesn't sit there and gossip about other people. He just doesn't talk about what other people have told him. You've never seen that. And you realize he's very trustworthy. As a matter of fact, the only time 3 years not coming in there doing AA meeting, he missed 1 week, he comes in the next week and he tells you that his mama died. Now naturally he wasn't going to make it in when his mama died because he had to go take care of burying his mama. That makes sense. So he missed 1 week. But the rest of the time he's showing up like clockwork and he's trying his best to help everybody get and stay sober in there. You probably got a good candidate. You see the fruit. Don't just go out there and ask somebody to hear your dirt. No, that's not wise. Don't do that. Make sure you can trust them. Make sure you can trust them. That's very key. Big Book says this, it's of utmost importance that that person be able to keep it in confidence, the person you choose. Now, got about 25 or 30 minutes, and I want to spend time on a couple of things. I want to talk about types of things that are told in 5th steps. Types of things are told in 5th steps. Now, I'm going to share with you many things that have been shared with me, and here's what I mean. I'm talking general, not specific. I'm not going to say Johnson said this or blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking that. I'm just painting a picture of things that have been shared with me in 5th steps and been shared with others just to give you an idea of what kind of things are shared in a 5th step. I'm not telling any individual what they said at all. Would never do that. But I'm going to paint the picture of generally what comes up in 5th steps. You got to remember, me dealing with tens of thousands of people now in jails and prisons, sobriety being a big issue. If they can stay sober, they can stay out of jail or prison for the vast majority of them. Sobriety is very important. And I've had many people who they poured out their heart doing this 5th step. Generally, here's how it'll be. They'll be very nervous before they do it. Oh man, I've been sweating, I didn't sleep last night. Whatever the case may be. They go ahead and tell their deep, dark secrets, and when they get through, they look like a 1,000,000-pound weight came off their back. You can just see in the physical the freedom that's come in the spiritual. It's like watching a man get a 1,000,000-pound weight off his shoulders he's been carrying around. Stoops him down and gets it off, throws them shoulders back. He's got a beam, he's got a gleam in his eye. He got a beam of a smile. He can now look the world in the eye. We'll talk about a few of those types of things. But here's the types of things that go on. And when I've done with many people done these 5th steps, probably well over 100 now, here's basically what's going on. Over half of us in incarceration facilities with substance abuse issues, alcoholic or addict, have had some form of sexual abuse happened to us when we were younger. Most people will never tell another soul about that, and they will live with that deep, dark secret. Now, what we many times don't want to do is get somebody in trouble. There's Uncle Joe over there, he may have molested, whatever the case is, it doesn't matter who it was. But sexual abuse, and we don't want him to go to prison for the rest of his life for doing that or something. But we never tell another soul. And so this avenue, what happens is we live with that deep, dark secret. You were sexually abused, and you can put anything in that blank you want to, however it happened. And you're the lowest piece of crap because that happened to you. And the enemy beats us down with it. But when we tell a sponsor, a priest, a minister, somebody who is solid that you know will not tell anybody else, that secret has been brought to the light and the enemy can no longer use that darkness against you. Now that's very important. That's extremely important. What other things have gone on? Let's see. The way I do it is I simply think of about 5 of the 10 commandments. I call them the point on the commandment, and then there's an umbrella, and everything seems to fit under all of these for deep, dark secrets. 5th, honor father and mother. All right, boom. What that basically means is there anybody who are relatives from in our lives who are older than we are, older brother, older sister, mama, daddy, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, all that stuff, cousin, oldness, whatever the case may be. Or is there any other family members, could be younger than us? Deep, dark secrets involved. Well, yes, Mr. Cloud, boom, 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 boom. We can tell those things and get them out. Number 6, don't murder. Now, murder is the tip of the umbrella, but there's a covering under the umbrella that goes like this. Violence. Rage. Some of those things that kind of get tied into murder but aren't murder. Death. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Somebody that's viciously beating somebody. They didn't die, but nobody else ever knew about it. They could tell that deep, dark secret. Fired up heroin with somebody back when we used. They rolled over dead. Ain't calling no law or 911 because this is our dope house and I ain't gonna let no one around. They may get me. Murder 2nd degree because I was firing up with him. But that deep, dark secret eats at us the rest of the life. Didn't murder him, but death was part of that. That's the umbrella, what I call the 6th commandment. That's the 2nd one. I look at the 5th, honor father and mother. 6th commandment, don't murder. 7th, don't commit adultery. That's the point of the umbrella. The covering of the umbrella is sexual in any fashion, shape, or form. Could be some of us practice homosexuality, and it was, quote unquote, not right for us. All right, and it's a deep, dark secret. Or, in some cases, bestiality. What does that mean, Mr. Cloud? Sex with an animal. Or, they did commit adultery. Or, some sort of sexual abuse of somebody younger. Okay? It could, any shape, sex, deep, dark secrets fits under that 3rd category, which comes from the 7th commandment. The 8th commandment, don't steal. All right, boom. Anything in the thievery umbrella. Cloud, I stole from my grandma. And I stole something very valuable. It wasn't valuable money-wise, but it was valuable as far as an heirloom to the family. And it really ate her up, but I never did let her know. And that secret's eaten me up all my life. Doesn't have to be value, for example, of stealing stuff sometimes. It ain't the money value. Me, for example, I'm going to go ahead and share one of mine. This was one of my deep, dark secrets that ate me. And then I got sober, and I shared it with my sponsor. And I don't mind sharing this one with everybody because it was a lower level deep, dark secret. In other words, them top ones, I'm not going to tell you my worst one that I have, my deepest, darkest secret. I'm going to go down here about number 7 or number 8. But basically, this is one that ate me. As a young man, I'm guessing 20 years old, plus or minus. So we're looking 30-something years ago. I'm drinking on like a Friday night. I came from a small county, all right? County so small, a man had wrecked. Total stranger had wrecked in that county. His car was busted up. They had taken him in the ambulance to the local small hospital. The state trooper had come. He was doing his investigation, wrapping it up. And that county was so small, probably had about one wrecker service. More than likely, he called there about 10 o'clock that night when I was seeing this kind of stuff go on. And he called the wrecker man. The wrecker man said, just leave it beside the road. I'll come get it tomorrow morning. I ain't coming out now. I'm already in bed. So the ambulance is taking the man who wrecked to the hospital. Have no clue. Is he dead? Is he in bad shape? His car was in pretty bad shape. Windows busted, etc. Trooper leaves. There ain't nobody else there but me and one of my drinking buddies. I said, pull on over there. I reach into the passenger seat and I get his briefcase, the man who wrecked. Let's go to the river. And we go down to the river. I go down the river. I crack open. Of course, it had a combination lock on that briefcase, thinking, oh, it could be money in here. It could be all kinds of stuff in here, be of value. Nice sunglasses, whatever the case is. So I'm breaking into it to steal it. And when I open it up, there ain't two things basically in there. Military papers, and the second thing was a Bible. All right? So I take the military papers and throw them in the fire down there at the river while I'm getting drunk and drinking. I take the briefcase, throw it in the fire as well too. But for some reason, and I wasn't a believer back then, I just couldn't bring myself to burn that Bible. But on the way out, me and that other guy, he was the only one who knew about it, so it was a real deep, dark secret. But if you catch it, he was part of doing it with me because he was with me and he wasn't stopping me. So when I say a secret, even though he knew he was a co-perpetrator, that still classifies as a deep, dark secret. But I took that Bible and I put it in a tree that came up off the ground like this. About this high, that tree came up, then it went with two major branches, or trunks, if you will. And I put that Bible in the tree right where those two split off, and I put it open end up. Now what happened is, as time passed, rain fell on it, the Bible leaves, the leaves in the Bible, the paper leaves in the Bible started flaring out. It looked like a cabbage. And so every time I'd go down to the river to drink, I'd look about 15 steps out there to the right. I was the only one that knew where it was, with most of the groups I went with, blah, blah, blah. And I'd see that Bible, and it was like the enemy had beat me down. You low-level piece of crap. That man could have died, been dead. And look what you did. You stole his family Bible because you a thief. Boom. He'd be beating me down with it. What would I do? More drugs and alcohol. More alcohol in particular for me. Trying to drown out those demonic voices. Thoughts, if you will. And that's what goes on if we don't get rid of them. And that's why the fifth step is so important. But I think that paints a picture. There was the thievery umbrella. That was commandment number 8. Commandment number 9, now if you catch that, commandment 5 is 1. Commandment 6 is 2. Commandment 7 is 3. Commandment 8 was 4. Commandment 9 was the 5th of these major umbrellas, which I believe all deep, dark secrets fall under, was this: don't lie. And we're not talking about I caught a brim that big and told everybody he was that big. Brim is a fish, for those of you who may not know that nationwide. That ain't the kind of lie we're talking about. That won't eat at our soul. These are the kind of lies we're talking about. I look just like my first cousin. I commit a major crime. The witnesses pick him out. The police go after him, and I never say a word. He goes and serves 15 years. That would be living a huge lie, and the enemy would beat me down. You the lowest piece of crap there ever been. You so low, you letting him go serve 15 years that you deserve. Drink up, drug up, trying to drown out those demonic voices. Okay? I think you get the picture. I've shared those deep, dark secrets. Now, I've shared those deep, dark secrets. Here's what I mean. There's no individual, did you hear me say anybody's name? Some of them are kind of general. Some of them might be specific. I even shared one of mine, deep, dark secrets. But it paints the picture of types of things told in a fifth step. Types of things told in a fifth step. We got about 15 minutes, and what I want to do is this. You remember earlier in the DVD I told you, before we do something, many times we should know what benefits are there. And I think one of the greatest list of benefits, if you will, for us to do a fifth step is this. It's called the Fifth Step Promises, and it comes from page 75 of the Big Book. Now, you won't see it listed, Fifth Step Promises, but it's in the context of having just done a fifth step. Tells you how to do the fifth step. Tells you a lot of stuff I've just told right there. And then, boom, when we take this step, as a matter of fact, it says we pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we've taken this step, withholding nothing, here's where the promises start. Now, if you got page 75, or you got our sheet that comes along with DVD number 13, that's the total CRM DVD, but Sobriety Part 7, here's basically what those promises are. And what I want you to think about on these promises, they come true in two dimensions. Here's what I mean. The physical dimension and the spiritual dimension. And I'll explain more what I mean by that. But here's the promises that come true. Now, to understand how the promises did come and get into the big book, basically everybody who was starting off, and I think I talked with you a little bit about how the big book and the promises came in one of the earlier DVDs, so I just painted a general picture. First 100 people come together to write the big book, and thus the promises. They raised their hand in the room and said, this all came true with me, and I believe it will come true with anybody who ever works a fifth step. Then my experience came true in my life, and everybody I've ever seen do a thorough and honest fifth step. I've seen these promises come true without fail. But here's what the first one is. We are delighted. That means in the physical, we're delighted. We get happy when we do the fifth step. Whew, Mr. Cloud, I'm glad I'm through with that. Got through with the fifth step. There'd be a big smile. Joy. I lost 1 million pound weight. They're delighted. But in the spiritual sense, we start getting joy. That's what I call delight in the spiritual sense. Joy means not that we're giddishly happy. Joy means everything's all right regardless of circumstances. I could be locked up. If I don't have any joy, it's going to be a bad experience. I've seen people locked up for a gazillion years, and they have joy, and it's good experience. Mr. Cloud, man, yep, I got 60 more years to go, but you know what? God's called me to be a minister up here in this prison. And I'm doing it, and we're reaping some souls for the kingdom of God. Ain't that some good stuff? Give me a high five. Boom, we give a high five. I know exactly where that man is. He's filled with joy, okay? Regardless of circumstances, facing decades. All right? Number one, we are delighted. Number two, we can look the world in the eye. Now, in the physical, what that means is this. Many times we're still carrying our deep, dark secrets. We don't even realize it. See somebody who the enemy says, he's telling us in our spirit, that person's better than you because they ain't done as bad as you. And our eyes will start looking down, and we'll shift down. We can't look at them long. We can't look at them long. In the physical, when we get through the fifth step, we look everybody, eyeball to eyeball. There ain't no secrets. We ain't got nothing to hide. The enemy can't beat us down. You lowest piece of blah, 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 because you did such and such. No, it's come to the light. It's covered. God said when we do that, there's healing. And I'm healing. I can look people in the eye. Now, that's in the physical sense, but there's also a spiritual sense to it. Before we do a fifth step, half the world's worse than us. He ripped me off. Look at that low-level piece of crap. Blah, 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 blah. Or, he thinks he's so good. He's the pastor of the local neighborhood there. Look at him. He ain't that good. And what's really going on is half the world's worse than we are. Half the world's better than we are. Spiritually, we don't fit. But when we do our fifth step, what we realize is that man who ripped us off, he's spiritually sick. I'm spiritually sick to some degree. Only God can heal us. And there's the pastor. Yeah, he does great work, but he's spiritually sick to some degree, and only God can heal him as too well. We're all equal in the spiritual sense, and people can sense that when we are there. God can use us amazingly. I think you could ask the people in general, in jails and prisons who I work with, is Mr. Cloud real? Is he your equal? Yes, sir. He comes in. He doesn't talk down to us. And then again, he ain't scared of nobody either. He realizes he's equal with the rest of us. He's not da-da-da-da, that kind of stuff. He realizes we're all equal under here. He's a real guy. And that comes with doing the fifth step. Third one, we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Have you ever noticed, and it was true in my life, you get in the car, you have to put the music on. Come in the house, you got to cut the radio, the TV, the DVD, whatever the case is, noise has to come. Always got to have noise thumping. You go into Walmart. You ever walked in one that was silent? No, not unless the power was off. Why? They're going to pipe the music and the advertisements. Because they realize real quickly silence will make people very uncomfortable. Why? Essentially, everybody has deep, dark secrets unless they've done a fifth step. And the enemy beats them down Now, some secrets are deeper and darker than others, therefore there's a deeper and darker spiritual sickness, if you will. But if we try to drown out what the demons, demonic, satanic, is saying to us, the enemy, whichever way you want to look at it, if we try to drown it out with noise, we also drowned out God speaking to our spirit. It's interesting. God speaks to our spirit, and He allows the demonic, satanic to speak to our spirit. And many times, if we're not headed in the right direction, He allows that satanic, demonic, enemy, whatever, to speak to our spirit, so it'll drive us to God. Get enough pain, we will. All right? Now, that being said, we go through the fifth step. I'll never forget. I could come home, didn't have to cut my TV or any noise on. Perfectly comfortable with silence. Get in the car. Sometimes I'll play the radio, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll play a DVD, sometimes I don't. Sometimes just silence. I'm comfortable with that. Sometimes I go off for 36-hour sabbatical into the mountains on my own just to have time with God. Or I may go down to the beach for a few days on my own. Spend it alone, in silence sometimes. Not the whole time, but vast majority, chunks of it. And I hear from God amazing things. For example, in my spirit, He told me in Crossroads, do these DVDs. Let's get them nationwide. It'll be way quicker spreading what you're bringing than simply waiting for people to come to Crossroads and then expand into another region. This is way quicker. So that's what He's shown me. All right? He spoke that to me in my spirit. But we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. That's in the physical. Ain't got to have a bunch of noise drowning out those voices that are telling us we're the lowest level piece of crap because we did such and such. Deep, dark secret. Fill in the blank. All right? But in the spiritual, we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. What that means is this. Once we've done a fifth step, we realize sometimes we're going to sense God's presence, and sometimes we ain't. Where are you, God? And either way is all right, because our sensing His presence has nothing to do with His presence. He's with us. He's everywhere. All right? Now, that's very important. But when we do that fifth step, we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Number 4, our fears fall from us. I find it amazing. As a practicing alcoholic, I used to have a reoccurring nightmare, if you will. Getting locked up in the Mecklenburg County Jail. I've lived in Mecklenburg County at least half my life. I grew up in a little county 2 counties over, so the big city was Mecklenburg County, Charlotte, and I had a reoccurring nightmare about being locked up in the jail. Of course, I got locked up in the jail, I believe, multiple times here in Mecklenburg County. A couple dozen arrests back in my day kind of thing, but anyhow, that reoccurring, it was a fear. It was a fear, if you will. It was a fear because it wasn't the truth when I had the dream. It was a fear of the enemy. And then I find it amazing that one of the places I look most forward to go into on a week-by-week basis is into the Mecklenburg County Jail to pour out for men to turn their lives around. Our fears fall from us. Amazing. Our fears of the hereafter. Had a heart attack back in 2008. 6 years ago, heart attack. Only 3 things can happen when you go in with a heart attack. You're either going to get the stent popped into the femoral artery, you're going to get your chest cracked open, quadruple bypass being done typically, or die. I sat there and thought about all 3 of them. Matter of fact, what was interesting was I drove to the hospital after having a heart attack. I don't recommend that, but I did. And got there, and when I was sitting there thinking it's going to end one of these 3 ways, I said, hey, I prefer, if I stay alive, get the femoral stent. Why? It's a whole lot less invasive than them cracking your chest open. So your recovery time is way quicker. I asked God, if you're going to keep me alive, let that happen, please. I'm just asking. The second thing was I realized I could die. And if I physically die, I am ready because I put my faith in Christ as Savior and Lord. And by His promise, I'm heaven bound. And heaven's way better than here. So I was in a win-win situation, and there was absolutely no fear of death. One of the benefits of the fifth step, right there in the promises, our fears fall from us. It means those fears that the enemy brings us. Those fears that the enemy brings us. Doesn't mean we're not going to have fear of a rattlesnake seeing him on the path. Boom, that's a survival fear. That's a good fear. That's the fear God wants us to have. He's talking about those bad fears, the ones that aren't based on the truth. The ones that aren't based on truth, okay? Now, we begin in number 5, we begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. I'll never forget, I got through the 5th step there, and my first spring, I call it my first spring when spring sprung. 1994, I'm about 5 or 6 months sober. I've gone through these steps, and I look around and I start seeing the spring here in North Carolina. The beautiful trees blossoming, the green leaves coming out, etc., so on and so forth. And I'm like, where has this been all my life? The birds singing. And all that stuff before I did a 5th step was like an inanimate object. Same thing as a stop sign. Green tree, red stop sign. But because of this step, I was feeling the nearness of our Creator, even in nature, as He showed His display of what only He can do. I've never met a man who could sit there and say, I can make that tree out there go from falling its leaves off in the fall, bare in the winter, in the spring start producing green leaves, and then in the summer be full green leaves. He can't do it himself. God can. And He does it every year, one year right after another. That's feeling the nearness of our Creator. Here is a big one. Another promise. It's the 6th promise. It says this: we begin to have a spiritual experience. Now, if you catch that, step 12 in a recovery program says this: having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps, we try to carry the message and practice these principles in all of our affairs. That's basically what it says. But it says in step 12, having had a spiritual experience, and here in step 5, it says we begin to have the spiritual experience. If you catch it, many times AA and NA people will say, this is a spiritual, not a religious program. That's where the spiritual experience is. Steps 5 to steps 12. And remember, I believe we need to be spiritually intact to stay out of jail or prison. If we're in the right direction, headed in the right direction spiritually, we'll stay out of jail or prison generally. I mean, I know there could be a rare exception. There was a crime they did 6 years ago before they really started walking with God, and it comes to light, or whatever the case is, those kind of things. False accusations, false identifications, those rare things could happen. But for the general part, we stay in our good spiritual fit condition, we're going to be incarceration free. Here is the biggest promise. Number 7, the feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. That is one of the most confusing sentences in the big book. If I'm the enemy, I want it confusing because his fingerprint is confusion. I believe it's the biggest promise in the big book, and what it's basically saying is this: the cravings stop. The jonesing ends. That would have been a way simpler way to write it, but the enemy kind of got in there with the men who wrote it and wrote it confusing. I'm not saying the men were evil or anything. I'm just basically who wrote it. I'm basically saying, hey, the enemy got in there a little bit and confused it. It still says that. It says the feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. It's the same way if we said simply, the cravings end, the jonesing stops. Boom! For an alcoholic or addict, huge promise. Huge promise. Okay? Now, I want to camp out on that one. That is a huge promise. Because if an alcoholic or addict can get rid of their craving, their jonesing, we got about 90% of this thing beat with God's help. And of course, God set the stage for that to happen here in the 5th step. The rest of the steps lead up to it. They're necessary. But boom, we're sitting there in the 5th step. Here is the 8th promise that's right there on page 75 of the big book. We feel we are on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. We're walking hand in hand with God's Spirit. God called me to go into jails and prisons and help people leave that lifestyle behind. You can imagine, I've seen some pretty dangerous stuff, dealt with people, multiple murders, etc., whatever the case may be. God's been with me every step. Love them, Jeff Cloud. God, I'm going to love them. Jeff Cloud, you're going to love them with me. And I'm hand in hand with it. It's a great life. And God wants that for you as well too. So there you have it. Part 7, the 5th step. The 5th step. Substance abuse programs nationwide in general, the vast majority of them have as their goal to get somebody through the 5th step. The biggest promise is leaving behind the addiction, alcohol lifestyle because the cravings leave. And that's why they want to get you through it. But those other promises are there as well too. All right, enough for DVD 7 of 8, Sobriety. I'll see you, good Lord willing, in DVD 8 of 8, Sobriety. And until that time, we've been blessed. Let's go be a blessing.